it's me again. Today I am going to talk a little bit about composition in your design, and I'm going to be adding some beads. So let's get on with it. The first thing I want to talk about is how I have used a simple shape to tie together the various areas of this piece. And that simple shape, of course, is a circle. And I have just repeated circles, either complete or in part, throughout the piece. I have defined various linear elements within the piece using linear stitches, and then I have reinforced the circles with things like these buttonhole wheels. I'll just bring that up to the camera so that you can see what I've done here. What I've done is I have looked at the fabric itself, looked at patterns on that fabric, and pulled and emphasized that pattern with a buttonhole wheel, but then I have turned the buttonhole wheels into a design element within themselves and just stitched a few more buttonhole wheels into the next section, next piece of fabric, next patch, just to tie this piece of fabric to those pieces of fabric. And then with the linear elements of the circles, with the circles themselves, I've also done the same thing. I've tied, this is a complete half circle, so it's tied this piece of fabric to that piece of fabric. Then the same here. And I've done it, you can look everywhere. You can see how the circle goes right over. It's not necessarily a complete half circle. See how I've left that bit left it out. But what it does do is it ties these pieces of fabric together. So it starts to unify the whole. The other technique I have used is that there are similar stitches throughout the piece to tie things together. So for instance here, I'm going to bring this up to the camera again. So as you can see, there are areas of seed stitch, and these are French knots. It's a dark thread, so there we go, you can see them there. And so this part there is French knots, and then it's sort of moving into seed stitch. So it's not just a block, a solid block. It's an interesting shift in texture. And so these are French knots again. In a previous video, I showed you how I picked out this pattern and just added the French knots. But you see, in another area, I'm going to put this back down. So here we've got dark French knots shifting into seed stitch, and then we've got a colour shift and it's seed stitch. But because it's a similar stitch, it's marrying. There is still a contrast there, so it's still of visual interest, but it's marrying. Then we've got seed stitch here and seed stitch here. So the eye goes, dun dun, and it moves across these various bits of fabric that could look just quite a mess of scraps, really, unless you tied it together in some way. Here I have got the French knot treatment and French knots here just in this band, but not in the band, not in this fabric here and here. So see how that band has French knots in it. I'll just bring it up to the fabric, to the camera again. So this is just the fabric has been left as is. And it's the same here. This fabric has been left as is. And I've got some little tiny French knots just in there. Okay. And in each case, you'll usually see the line tying together a couple of pieces of fabric. Now the next piece is, once again, this is an area of seed stitch, which is just another circle, but I haven't outlined it in this case. It's just a circle, just a shape, and it's tying. This is seed stitch worked in a dark thread, and this is seed stitch worked in a light thread, and even so, it still reads as a circle, but it ties those areas together. So as you can see, we've got different stitches here, but because they're all echoing either the same shape or echoing a line, they're either echoing the shape of a circle or following the edge of a circle, you know. So we have some more close-ups there. I've been asked to demonstrate this stitch. I'll do this later in a video. These are bullions, which I did in a previous video. I'll put a link down below. And I've been asked to demonstrate this stitch as well. In a later video, I'll do it, probably. It's on my list. How am I going to treat all this with beads? Okay, I'm just going to talk about some beads I've got. These are little tiny hishi beads. They're just a natural, they could be an acrylic, I'm not sure. Anyway, they look natural. Little round discs. Now, as you can see, these shapes are echoing the dominant shapes, the dominant circles. So I've selected those to do that job, to echo that major shape. Then I've got some grommets, which I'll show you where I'm going to put them later on in a minute. And then I've got these beads. I'll just now these are discs, but the thing about these is that they can be stitched on flat. I'll put that, as you can see. These are actually from the shop, from shop stock. All my beads, if you see it in my bead soup mixers in the shop, if you see a flat disc bead like this, they can all be stitched on flat. They're not something that is a problem to stitch onto your work. They're hard to find, beads that will be lay flat to the fabric like this, because most beads are made for jewellery making, whereas these are also made for jewellery, but these are ideal for stitching on things because they can be stitched flat to the fabric. So that's what I always look for when I'm, buying for stock. The other things I have, this is also shop stock. In fact, they're all shop stock looking at them, are these mother of pearl discs, which I might stitch on too. Right, so where am I going to put them? Now, see this area here where we've got the buttonhole wheels already. What I'm thinking of doing is adding some little grommets like this. So what I will do is I will probably create lines using these grommets that are like the lines of the fabric. They won't be exactly the same. They will echo that thing. And I might do the odd thing like this. Just put one up there. And I would line it up with that and space these the same way as these are spaced. But once again, what I'd be doing is, crossing the seams so that the beads are what are seen, not the different patches. I'm trying to marry everything together so that it doesn't look scrappy. So that's the way I might use those grommets. And then there are these little bits and pieces. Now, I won't put them here because I think I'm going to put the grommets there. But you see, you could easily repeat this pattern or continue the grid using these. And you see, that also would marry those sections together, even though one's a bead and one's a stitch. You just got to think about the stitches as a mark and the beads in a way as a mark, rather than as beads, Don't think of them as bling, think of them as a design element in their own right. So that's the way I might use the Hishi beads. And then, of course, I'll just move to a different area so that you're not looking at the same old area. These beads, I might echo this patterning. I might just put 3 or 4, not too many. There we go, something like that. So that now, actually I wouldn't put it there because see how it's creating a block. It's stopping the eye from going to this area, and I've still got to do something with this area. I'm still thinking about it. Now, when I add the beads, that doesn't mean that the embroidery has finished. I would still continue embroidering, and what I would do is say I put them here. I'm not sure whether I will, but say I put those beads here, and then this is looking particularly empty. I would come in and embroider something there. It could be even another half circle, or I might just put them there to avoid the problem of having to do another whole thing. It can just be to the side, and it's not blocked the design. But even if I put them there, I'm going to need something here to tie this and this area all together. So, my point is that I would still come in and embroider some more as well as doing the beads. The other way I might use something is I've got these, which are very nice because they're mother of pearl, basically. So I might use those instead of the blue ones, or I might use these somewhere else on the design. But these are actually looking quite nice against with these. They sort of echo, the two areas. And if I put them right in the middle like that, it might be enough to fill that space. But anyway, so my point is, this is how I am thinking design-wise. I'm looking at tying things together with everything I do. I think that's enough for this week. Any more and I'll start boring you all. So I'll see you next time, and happy stitching. Bye.